Today, the Philippines submitted its memorial to the arbitral tribunal that is hearing the case it brought against the People's Republic of China under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in January 2013. The Philippines memorial was submitted in conformity with the rules of procedure adopted by the 5-member arbitral tribunal last August, which established March 30, 2014 as the due date for its submission.
Good evening, this is News.Ph, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Are our relations with China damaged after Manila filed its memorial before an arbitral tribunal and after a second resupply mission for the BRP Sierra Madre at Ayungin Shoal got through a Chinese Coast Guard blockade? What fallout is in store for us? Our guests, Department of Foreign Affairs spokesperson, Assistant Secretary Charles Jose, and Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Ramon Zagala. They're joining us in this first segment. Asik Jose and Colonel Zagala, thank you very much for being here. Let's begin, Asik Jose. China says you are damaging relations. Are you? Is the Philippines damaging relations?
Well, the Philippines, we have always been pursuing a principled foreign policy based on international law, particularly the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. And we have always been advocating a rules-based approach to our problem. We have always been advocating a peaceful settlement of the dispute without resorting to force or threat of force.
So we've been going by the book. We've been doing everything according to the law, to international law. But the question is, are we damaging relations with China in the process?
Well, that's not our intention.
It's not our intention, but it is a result. It is an unwanted result. Ganun ba yun?
That's not the way we look at it, because when we decided to file the arbitration, it was our intention to seek clarification from UN as to what exactly the maritime entitlements of the Philippines and China. So what it would be clear to both sides the extent of our maritime jurisdiction.
Okay, but it is clear to us that because we chose to go down that way, that we do, well, risk incurring the ire of Beijing.
Well, of course, in every decision that we make, there are corresponding consequences.
Okay. Are we prepared for those consequences?
Well, Cabinet Secretary Rene Almendras has spoken on that issue, and the FA has nothing to add to that.
Can you repeat what he said?
He said the Philippines is prepared for the consequences.
Have we already been able to outline what those consequences are? Because if we're going to say we're prepared for the consequences, and if our government will tell the people that don't worry, we are prepared for the consequences, shouldn't we at least know what these consequences are?
Well, there are so many possibilities, and it's difficult to speculate on them.
Yeah, but we should. I mean, if we are going to prepare for consequences, we should speculate on them, right? I mean, we should, imagine kung ano yung mga possible consequences. Para nga preparado tayo. Hindi yung we're caught off guard and then, we're not going to prepare for it because it's difficult to speculate on it, di ba?
Yes. But I'm not going to do it here.
You're not going to do it here. Okay. But maybe we can talk about where are we vulnerable when it comes to China?
Well, we have to admit that we have some vulnerabilities.
Like what?
Like, of course, we are trading partners. We have goods to export. We have goods to import. That's an area.
Yeah. Okay. So how will something like this, a Ayungin Shoal, our having filed that memorial before the tribunal, how will that impact on our trading relations with China?
It's difficult to say what China will do.
But so how are we going to prepare ourselves? What is it going to mean to the ordinary Filipino, to the ordinary man on the street?
We have already seen this happen during the height of the standoff over Panatag Shoal in April 2012, when China imposed stricter quarantine inspection of Philippine banana exports to China. And they also imposed a 6-month travel ban on Chinese tourists going to the Philippines. So we can see the impact of maybe economic sanction that China will impose on the Philippines.
Okay, so apart from impact on our exports, impact on tourist arrivals, what are the other areas that we could be vulnerable in?
Of course, we have Filipinos working in China. That's another area.
Yeah. So how would that affect them? What do you mean? They could lose their employment there, or life could be made difficult for them? What exactly?
That's something for China to. It's difficult for us to speculate at this point.
Although I'm sure you are aware of all these theories, scenarios that have been floating around about how China could get back at us in terms of, for example, business, communications, power, electric power. Ang daming mga, umiikot floating around na nga, no? Can you address them? Because, it sounds scary, di ba? Can you address them? Can you at least, allay people's fears, or, tell people na, hindi totoo yan, hindi mangyayari yan, or oo, totoo yan, pwede mangyayari yan, let's prepare ourselves.
I think Secretary Almendras in his statement, he specifically addressed those areas, our energy sector, telecommunication sector, and he said that the Philippines is prepared, and we have taken measures to make sure that we won't be affected.
Okay, so are we also prepared for a military scenario?
I think I think that's something for the military establishment.
Yeah, but
to
since you're
answer.
DFA, I mean, that is something that you also have to look into. I just wanted to address that question first to you. But was the decision to send that second supply mission to Ayungin Shoal and to document the journey part of the strategy? Because now, ang inisip ng tao is, there was a strategy, file the memorial, and then at the same time, send that mission to Ayungin Shoal. Parang medyo to grab the world's headlines.
I think the resupply mission to Ayungin was a routine one. We have been doing that since 1999.
Yes,
When,
I know, you know
yes,
that. But
yes.
what I'm saying is, was it also made part of the strategy?
Not on the DFA's part.
Not on the DFA's part. It wasn't like, magpa-file kami ng memorial. Sabayan nyo kami ng pag-file ng memorial, padala kayo ng second mission. Walang ganon.
Walang ganon.
At least not on your level.
Not on my level.
Not on your level. Okay. Colonel Zagala, was that decision to send a second resupply mission to Ayungin Shoal and to document the journey part of the strategy?
Well, if you remember, our troops there have been there for 5 months.
Yes.
And it's time for them to rotate and change the troops and bring in fresh supplies. Unfortunately, in the first week of March, we were blocked and we weren't able to do that. So we were forced to airdrop supplies and we weren't able to change the troops.
Yeah.
So we couldn't afford not to let the second resupply mission go through, because the men there have been there for 5 months and food was already was only up to like the 28th or 27th. So it was very important for the Armed Forces of the Philippines to ensure that supply ship goes through. So
Okay. So it was
when we did
merely, so it was the strategy there was to make sure by hook or by crook to get those men para ma-rotate sila to,
Yes.
to bring in a fresh supply of goods, to bring in the new people, the new soldiers who would replace those men who'd been there for 5 months. That was all. It had
Yes.
nothing to do with the fact that nagkataon sabay ng pag-file ng memorial.
Well, if the first supply ship wasn't blocked, then it wouldn't have been connected. However, since it was blocked, we had to think of other ways on how to bring in our troops safely. That's a very difficult situation. I mean, the assignment itself is very difficult.
Of course.
So it was imperative that to maintain morale and efficiency of our troops who are there just doing their duty, they must be replaced and
Yes.
rotated.
Oo.
And if it just so to happen that if the first one wasn't blocked, then we won't have this second one.
Okay.
So,
But nowhere in your discussions was it said na itong weekend na ito, ifo-file kasi yung memorial.
No.
Hindi ganon, no?
Hindi ganon.
Yung strategy is just to get those men, bring in the new men, bring in the new supplies.
yes, the strategy really is how are we not going to be blocked? It's important that we bring in supplies to show our intent because unfortunately, the first supply ship, there was a lot of insinuations that China was saying that we were bringing in construction materials, we're going to build something.
Sayang ano, you should have brought in construction materials na lang. Di ba?
Well, that would be a change in the status quo. Our intent really is, if you've seen those troops that were there, it's time for them to come home and put in fresh troops.
Well, why was it a success, this second mission? What made this second mission different from the first?
Well, we were able to maneuver and get in the shallow water. And unlike the first time, we were stopped in the middle of about 5 nautical miles prior.
No,
Before this one,
before our trip, diba, there's always a briefing. Before our mission,
Yes.
there's always a briefing. So, nung may briefing, nasabihan ba yung magiging captain ng ship? Or, meron bang military strategy, maneuvers na pinag-usapan?
well,
Walang
this is
ganun.
really what's important to note here. Really, is the secrecy of the mission itself. We didn't want to let our adversary know when we're going to do it because they'll be waiting for us.
When I say, I know, Colonel Zagala, when I say there's a briefing, I meant for those who are going on the mission.
Of
So
course,
the
yes.
captain of the ship. So during that briefing, napag-usapan ba na, ito ang gagawin nyo kapag ibablock kayo because
Yes.
we're sure na ibablock kayo. Punta kayo dun sa shallow area. Yung mga ganon.
All scenarios
Strategy.
all scenarios were looked into, especially the way we learned how they did it the first time when they blocked us. So we just simply game planned and do new strategies so that it will be successful. Of course, we also considered the failure if we weren't able to get through on what will be our next move. Because the last time, to avoid escalation and confrontation, we decided to back out. But this time, we decided that we have to get through really. So we can't let our people down, especially those who were there for more than 5 months. And
So was
we're
part of the
glad-
strategy to make to send a small ship or what nung first mission it was also small
Well-
kasi a smaller ship, di ba? That's what was able to go to the shallow waters,
Yes.
for example. Ganon.
Yes, the ship, the strategy really is, first is to use a civilian vessel. We wanted to show that we had no other intent but to reprovision, resupply, and rotate our troops. So that the Chinese Coast Guard would not think that we're going to be doing anything else but that. And the ship is really small, so that they will know that the supplies we're bringing in is just really for food and for their habitability. Of course, that's a lonely post, so we have to ensure that they have the necessary things and supplies they need to survive such a long deployment.
Yeah. What, by the way, what supplies were brought to them?
Well, mostly food,
Food.
water.
Okay. What kind of food? I'm just curious.
Well, a lot of it is, as you know, there's a lot of fish there. No? It's very easy to get fish, but
Yeah.
things like corned beef,
Canned goods.
rice, and things, condiments for their cooking oil, water, primarily a lot of water.
Okay. What other supplies?
Well, to make it
When you say to make
habitable,
it habitable, like what?
like mattresses, beds.
They didn't have mattresses?
Well, they did, but of course we have to frequently change, and then to protect from the elements, such as a little laminate sacks to protect from the elements, and that.
Laminate what?
Laminated sacks, you know those tarps to protect the ship itself. Just those things.
Okay. Was this the same crew or a different crew in the first and the second mission? Pareho lang ba?
It's just the same. It's just the same.
Just the same. Okay. But you said that you considered several scenarios. So What were those scenarios that you were
The
considering?
scenario really is if they won't be able to get through, and then that we have to resupply by air. And try to figure out another way to bring in the ship. But really, that was not an option. In fact, the head of mission, Lieutenant Gato, really insisted, and he did a good job by doing his maneuvers, and he was able to get in.
Was this a case of we may not outgun them, but we may outwit them?
Yes, in a way, because it's such a small ship compared to going only 5 to 6 knots compared to the Chinese Coast Guard 17 knots. So once we were already close, that very speed helped us stop and maneuver. So sometimes being slow is also an advantage for us.
Being slow and being small.
Slow and small.
Okay. Is a Union Shoal ours?
Well, as far as we're concerned, it is. Our detachment there, that LT-57 to begin with, is BRP Sierra Madre. It is a vessel of the Philippine Navy. And we consider that as property of the Republic of the Philippines. And whoever is assigned there raises our flag. And definitely, it is, we are protecting our national interest there.
Of course, China claims a Union Shoal is theirs.
Well, they can, everyone has claims, right? But we're there physically. They may be there, but they're in the water.
So occupation is the name of the game.
we're
Wait a
there.
minute, we're in the water also, right?
Yes, but we're anchored.
We're anchored. Wait a minute, they're not anchored? How do we know they're not anchored?
They're just going around and
They're
around.
just going around. They never
They're
drop
around and
anchor.
around. Maybe they can, but we are really anchored there. We're there.
Yeah, we are solidly anchored. What is it?
We are there.
Okay, does it mean something if you're anchored? I mean, let's say that they drop anchor, that means what? It doesn't
well,
really mean
to
anything.
us,
You're just trying to be the spokesman of the AFP.
To us, it is considered a detachment. Being a naval vessel, it's considered a detachment. It's like any detachment of the armed forces, any assignment of the armed forces of the Philippines. In this case, it's a ship that's run aground, but it still belongs to us. And
It was run aground on purpose, right? Parang talagang nilagay doon precisely to stake our claim there, right?
Well,
because it's a question of occupation, right?
Well, whatever the reason, it's there. And,
Di ba? That's the reason, di ba? Parang it's marking your territory.
It ran aground 1999 on the very dynamics on why it ran aground there. Of course, they would say that it was an accident, all that. And it's already there. And the very reason we maintain a detachment there, because the ship, when it ran aground, it's still our property and we have to safeguard it.
So why don't we just, refurbish it a bit, repair it a bit, ayusin ng konti para talagang
There's a status quo that you can't build.
That you cannot build.
You can't build anything. Now, we're very
Where?
careful. We're being careful.
Status quo,
Because the Code of
by who?
Conduct
Okay.
that we signed also, CN in 2002. And so we're very careful on how to proceed, especially...
But we're not building.
Yes, I know.
You are repairing.
I know.
Isn't that different?
I know, but
Isn't that different, Asek Jose? Isn't that different?
It is different. However, whatever we do, you just bring a sack of cement, they think you're already building. So
Who's they? The Chinese?
Yes.
But they built naman yung Mischief Reef, di ba?
Yes.
O sa akin lang, magre-repainting lang, tatanggalin yung mga kalawang. Nakakahiyang tingnan di ba?
Yeah, well, be it may, it's still our presence. And that on the part of the AFP, we're very careful on how we act, especially in that area wherein they want their presence to be felt. And you can just look at the supply ship that we use civilian, just to show that we don't want to escalate.
Why don't we use Philippine Coast Guard vessels?
Because we don't want to escalate and make
No,
things
but
worse.
the Philippine Coast Guard is civilian, right? It's no longer part of the AFP. As a matter of fact, it's under the DOTC. So it's not a military vessel,
That
right?
is a possibility that we can look in the future. Because right now, the ship itself is under the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Maybe we can look at that also. But for now, the safest thing that for us to do is really use a civilian vessel so that they can't say anything.
Okay, para lang walang masabi. No?
Sila masabi
Pero,
na we're using a civilian vessel. Now, if you attack a civilian vessel, whose only mission is to reprovision, what does that say?
Yeah. But they will never really attack or harass. I mean, well, harass maybe by water cannon, diba? They never fired upon any vessel
Yes,
yet.
but they crossed the bow of the boat. And crossing the bow of the boat is your intent is to slow you down and make you stop.
The bow of the boat meaning the front part.
The front. So
That is an
alone,
aggressive
That is an
action.
aggressive action. And that what they did is really something to, because they're saying that's theirs, and we're saying that's ours. So we insist on ours, and that we did what we had to do, and we were successful.
Okay, so kasi sorry na lang sila, parang ganon.
Yes, that's now the
Yeah.
next reprovision is now the challenge.
When is the next reprovision?
We'll do it in a couple of months.
Couple of months. Okay. Next time you should bring
Sure,
cans of paint.
sure.
Rust proofing.
What was it colored before, that boat?
Gray.
Gray. How
It
boring
is still
naman.
gray. It's still gray.
It's-
Navy gray
Navy gray. Okay. Maybe it should be like bright orange or something.
can be.
Yung
or
pang-asar
green.
lang ba? But anyway, ask ko sa'yo, will this make it easier? Itong filing filing the memorial at the tribunal and the Ayungin Shoal incident, no, for lack of a better word, will this make things easier to get public acceptance for expanded U.S. Military presence in the country?
Well, not only, more importantly, get the support of the public, because now they see, the way China,
You have the support of the public, right?
not everyone understands
Okay.
the situation.
Yeah.
So now they have seen the way China shooed away our fishermen in Panatag Shoal by using water cannons. They saw how China tried to block our supply ships trying to supply our troops in the Ayungin Shoal. So it's very important to get the public support behind our position on this maritime dispute with China.
But once you have that, do you think that then it will be easier to get that public support also for this coming expanded U.S. presence
Well,
or rotational presence?
That's also part of our strategy in getting minimum defense posture. We're trying to get the support and cooperation of our treaty partners and allies in the region to help us strengthen our defense capabilities.
Okay. What happens, by the way, and this is again, syempre, parang scenario building lang, but we just want to prepare ourselves. What happens if diplomatic relations are severed or damaged? There is protocol for that, right? Like, you close down the embassy, ambassador and the entire staff packs up and goes home. That's how it's supposed to happen, right?
Yes, that's how it happens when diplomatic relations are cut off.
Okay, but there is like a formal. What is there a ceremonias? Or is there an exchange of letters? What normally happens when countries decide to break na tayo, parang ganon?
I think the diplomats are ordered out of the country, so that's it.
They'll be booted out.
Yeah,
Okay, you think they'll just be booted out? No, I mean it's not like
there will be no ceremonies, definitely.
no ceremonies, but they won't be held, right?
Ah, no,
I mean,
no,
parang
no.
get out of our country,
Yes.
parang ganon. Okay, and then what happens next? Are they escorted out? Para how do they leave? How will they leave Beijing, for example?
Well, they
Get in their cars and
yeah,
drive to
get
the
in their
airport
cars and take the plane.
Ganon lang.
Yes.
Okay. And then what else? What can we expect?
But maybe getting away from that scenario, I would like to point out that the Chinese side, they left a door open. If you will note in the statement given by their MFA spokesperson, and even when they talked with our ambassador,
Yeah.
they said that they still keep the door for negotiations open. So that's
Bilateral negotiations.
Yes.
So in other words, no to the ITLOS arbitration, yes to bilateral negotiations. But what is the Philippines' position?
Well,
ITLOS, right?
yes, for us that is the best, the most peaceful way to find a solution, the most durable and lasting one. But even the Philippines, we have not really closed our doors to we have not ruled out anything on how we can
You're
solve
saying
this problem.
you can step back from EAT-Laws and decide, okay, let's do bilateral talks, just us?
It depends on the condition.
What condition?
Because right now, China claims indisputable sovereignty. So that's that's difficult.
Because they're saying it's theirs.
Yes.
This is ours, pero mag-usap tayo. Paano yun?
Well, who knows? China just might change its position. Who knows?
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're just saying the diplomatic thing, di ba? I mean, unless talaga naman you'll say, yes, we're severing relations with Beijing. Hindi naman ganon. Okay. Final words from the two of you. Colonel Zagala, you first.
Our mission in the LT-57 is really to first protect our national interest and of course protect our people. We cannot let our people down, and that the supplies that they needed were really brought for that purpose. And that we will continue our task and mission there, and not just there, and all our islands held in the Calayan Island Group.
You know what? Instead of orange, maybe yellow would be nicer.
Maybe. Or red.
Diba? Why red?
So it can be seen.
Can be seen. It'll look like a Chinese ship, but anyway. Asik Jose.
Well, for us, we would like to call on our countrymen to continue supporting the position of the Philippine government led by our president, that what we are doing, we're just defending what is ours, we're just protecting what is ours.
Yeah, but I just wanted to ask you again, no? You're saying we are open to bilateral talks, bilateral negotiations with China, which is what we have been avoiding all along, right?
We have tried that path,
Yeah.
bilateral negotiations, since 2012 during the Panatag Shoal incident. We have been conducting bilateral talks with China.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they did not succeed. That's why we opted to go for this arbitration.
Yeah. So what makes you now say that you are open to that again?
Because we're not ruling out anything. We are open to everything that can help resolve this
Why?
dispute.
Because you want to resolve the dispute.
Yes, because we want a peaceful settlement of this dispute.
Okay, you want a peaceful settlement, but Ayungin Shoal and the others and Panatag are ours.
Because that is our position.
Because that is our
yes.
principled position.
Yes.
Okay.
Based on international law.
Based on international law. Okay. That's what China will say also. Thank you very much, Asek Jose of the DFA, spokesperson of the DFA, and Colonel Zagala of the Armed Forces. Maraming salamat. We're taking a short break. News.Ph will be right back. Stay with us.
We will never allow the Philippines to illegally occupy China's Renai Reef. We will never allow the Philippines to jeopardize the declaration on the conduct of parties in the South China Sea, nor we will ever allow the Philippines to build infrastructure on the Renai Reef. The Philippine side will certainly face consequences for its provocative action.
With firm conviction, the ultimate purpose of the memorial is our national interest. It is about defending what is legitimately ours. It is about securing our children's future. It is about guaranteeing freedom of navigation for all nations. It is about helping to preserve regional peace, security, and stability. And finally, it is about seeking not just any kind of resolution, but a just and durable solution grounded on international law.
Welcome back. You're still watching News.Ph on the Solar News channel. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Our guests in this second and last segment, military historian Jose Custodio, Director of UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea, Professor J. Batong Bakal, and former ABC News Beijing Bureau Chief, Chito Santa Romana. Welcome back, everyone, to the show. And to Mr. Santa Romana and to Jose, welcome back.
Thank you for having us again.
You know, the last time when we were talking, and then wait, before that question, I want to ask Muna, what color should we paint BRP Sierra Madre? What is it?
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious. I'm asking you, what color should we paint the BRP Sierra Madre?
No, earlier we were joking that it should be hot pink.
Hot pink because
So that it would match the coral.
match the coral. Okay, but then Jose had a really sharp observation
Yeah,
there.
because I remember that the former MMDA head, Bayani Fernando, was painting the entire city pink because in his view, pink reduced tension and anger. So if you paint the ship pink, everybody will be happy and peaceful.
And peaceful, and
Yes.
everybody can claim ayungin.
Yes, and negotiate.
And negotiate.
Peacefully.
Peacefully.
There.
Okay, maybe we will be forever negotiating.
Yes.
Mr. Santormana, I'm afraid to ask you what color would you prefer?
Green.
Green. Why green?
Lasal?
Oh my God. Okay. Hindi, papayag na rin ako sa apple green. Not dark green, apple green. Okay, so we were saying, when you were here, Jose and Mr. Santormana, a few weeks ago, we were saying, let's wait and see for what happens after March 30. And this is what happened. So we have the filing, then the Yung Shoal incident. Where do we go from here? What's going to happen next?
I think the key objective now of the Chinese, the reason they're taking a strong reaction, is really directed at the other claimant states. There's a saying in Chinese, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. I hate to say it, but they're directing their anger at us because of what we did, or, the filing and the Yung Shoal, but it's meant to stop Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei from following our example. This is a key objective. Insofar as our forces are concerned, of course, there is a fear that they may also try and recover, for example, a Yungin. Because from their point of view, the Chinese perspective is the whole Spratlys, not just a Yungin, not just the reefs that they control, the whole Spratlys belongs to them. In their letter to the UN, they stated this in their letters to the UN. And they claim 200 miles from there. So that's why they're not counting from Hainan, the big island. They've defined the Spratlys as part of Hainan, and they're counting 200 miles from there. This is what the Philippines cannot accept. And that's why you have this struggle. Our definition of our territory and their definition of their territory, there's an overlap. That's why when we say what is ours, they say the same thing. And so this thing will be a protracted battle. We have to be prepared for that. The Chinese right now are determined, because of the direction of their foreign policy, not to defend what they consider as their core interest, sovereignty. And unfortunately, they see us as challenging their sovereignty. We see it the other way around.
We see it as
Them challenging our sovereignty. So you have the groundwork actually for conflict. The question is how to restrain. The question is how to have the right level of statesmanship so that the leadership on both sides can stand higher, see further, and avoid conflict or any miscalculation. Because a single miscalculation could really be drastic. The Chinese, though, will be calculating carefully the political price they have to pay if they were to move. That's why, if you notice, yung patintero sa dagat, they avoided the use of any bullet or even water cannon at this day. So it's a calculated way. Their objective was to have it turn around, but they lost the battle. In the end, we may not have advanced technology, but we have brains. Abilidad ng Pinoy. Still, we can count on it to be able to use our weakness and turn it to advantage.
Jay, what were you thinking when the Ayungin Shoal incident happened over the weekend? Kasabay na, sabi naman nila na walang kinalaman sa filing.
Yeah, I think wala namang kinalaman yun. No? I mean, the conditions at sea in that particular part of the West Philippine Sea is really such that you have a very limited window of calm seas. You really have to go when you can, no? Because you cannot predict the weather for a very long period. You can only forecast it for a few days. So if you have the chance, you really have to go. I think that in this instance, talaga nagkataon lang na they were able to go. The weather allowed them to go and the sea conditions allowed them to go at the time just before the filing of the memorial. As Colonel Zabala said earlier, they really needed to resupply the mission, the detachment. No? And I think that's a valid reason. You cannot leave those poor guys there alone for half a year. They'd probably go bananas. No? So you really, I think it was really on the part of the AFP. They really needed to do that.
Yeah. Did it help our case?
I think it did actually, because the unintended consequence really of the resupply mission was to show to the world what the Chinese were doing. No? And I myself was surprised when I saw a little bit more detail as to what happened, that you really could say that this is an informal blockade. No? It may not be done by their military forces, but it's still a blockade.
Still a blockade,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the way they were doing it by crossing the bow, as Colonel Zabala mentioned, no? That is really not permitted in international law. And you do not even need to invoke UNCLOS there. You can just invoke regular maritime laws. No? There are things like the collision
or traffic
regulations.
laws.
Well, the equivalent of traffic laws at sea.
Yeah.
There are these things called the collision regulations, no? Which all nations observe. And this probably could even be argued to be already customary international law, because the principles under the call regs are basically based on maritime practices that precede it.
Yeah.
No?
You don't just cross the bow because that will slow down the oncoming ship.
Not
or
just
it
slow
could
down, but
cause
it presents the danger of a collision. It's going to be a deliberate collision. If this were like a regular commercial vessel, and this incident happened, and an accident took place, there would be a board of marine inquiry, and there would be liabilities for who did the wrong thing. And here, the wrong thing is crossing the bow of an oncoming vessel.
So why would China do something like that? Really just to
like I said,
drive home the point, literally.
Here, really, as I said, it's a blockade. The obvious intention is to get the Philippine ship to back off, no, and go home. It's simply that.
Okay.
And it's very good that in this instance, because our people were determined, they were able to take advantage of their small size and slow speed.
But I'm sure
outsmart.
Beijing is aware that there are men on board who have no food, who will have no food at a certain point, right?
Yes.
So that would become a humanitarian what?
Well, what we're seeing is the execution of the so-called cabbage strategy, the encirclement strategy. You can call it blockade or whatever. The idea is to disrupt your supplies so that they will not have any supplies and they're forced to be ejected or to be rescued. If they really don't have any supplies, that they may surrender. In which case, they win the battle, the Chinese win the battle without firing a shot. The problem here is what Jay pointed out, that what they're doing is very similar to the Chinese strategy. With an American ship that was following a Chinese aircraft carrier, they used the same tactic, to cut in the bow. And the Americans criticized it as being unprofessional. But in our case, it is very similar to how the Chinese reacted, or rather, what they're trying to do is to achieve the same objective as what the Japanese Coast Guard did to the Chinese captain. You ram the ship, and then you arrest the captain. Or the Philippine ship rams the big Chinese ship, and because of it sinks. So here, the immediate objective is to make them turn around. If they cannot turn around and they cannot maneuver well, and this shows the excellent seamanship of the captain, the Filipino captain, to be able to avoid it. Otherwise, you'd have an accident.
This is not the first time this happened, because April 2012, one of our reporters, Miguel Ortilla, had gone to Panatag, and roughly the same thing happened.
Yeah,
Diba?
it's
It's
a
not-
case
oo.
of
Yeah.
Bitoanon. Bitoanon's convoys to supply the Pag-asa Island have also experienced the same maneuvers from Chinese ships deployed in that area, and they're cutting off. And in the case of Bitoanon, the vessels of Bitoanon are outriggers. These are large outriggers.
Outriggers meaning?
Larger bangkas.
Larger
Like
bangkas.
the basnig.
But bangka pa rin. Malaking bangka.
And these things, they're even more vulnerable, because
Yes.
they will just break up if they hit the Chinese ship. Which again, it was a victory. I think in case of Ayungin, but my concern is that we might be focusing too much on Ayungin and might forget that there are other territories that we claim. And my concern here is that are the Chinese making us focus on one spot,
Yes.
putting all our limited resources there, and then suddenly they hit us somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Parang malingat lang tayo konti
Yes.
sa
Yes, I
aluminum. Okay, this
really-
is a victory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yun
like
pala.
we're all.
I remember Sun Tzu's adage, no, all war is misdirection.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a valid point that this could be a misdirection because there are other Philippine positions that could be just as vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
okay.
the thing is that since it was mentioned earlier in the episode, in the program, that we had complied with the code of conduct, we have not improved on anything. In the same vein, in terms of modernization and upgrade of capabilities, we have also barely touched the surface or moved from square one. Whereas the Chinese, since 1995, they have been transforming their forces and their capabilities to an extent that they can now operate off our shores. When before they weren't able to do that. When the mischief reef happened, they were not able to do that. Actually, we were able to arrest fishermen up until 2012. See, one thing I will tell you here is this, okay? Post March 30, we don't know what's going to happen immediately. But this I can tell you. The Chinese are always true to their word when they threaten. Okay.
Okay, so when they say you have damaged relations,
Oh, they are threatening us. When they say, when the Chinese captain said, you come in and you will face the consequences, that's a threat. And historically, the Chinese have always been consistent in carrying out their threats.
they have never made empty threats.
They never made it. They always, they will hit you at a point where you are not aware, or you commit yourself to a certain point that your rhetoric outstrips your capabilities. That's my concern here in the Philippines, is that our rhetoric is apparently outstripping our capabilities. And there's a historical analogy to that. It's what India experienced with China. In India's case, it also had a territorial dispute with China in the early 60s. Its rhetoric outstripped its capabilities. And
Like what did it say, which it couldn't?
it was approaching, the term is jingoism, ultranationalism, forcing the government to take strong action against the Chinese, and the Chinese were just biding their time. And then they launched, the Chinese struck back, launched launched an offensive, and drove out the Indians from disputed areas, just as quickly as that.
Yeah, okay. What is the fallout going to be like? Of course, if you ask the DFA, syempre, they won't say, no. Realistically speaking, ano ba yung fallout that we're expecting? I ask this because in the last 2 days, all these scenarios, parang MH370 scenario building tayo. Wow, all the scenarios possible. Disruption of communications, disruption of power, business. Ang dami. No, what are we to believe?
Okay. Over the past year, actually, there have already been some sanctions, unannounced by the Chinese, but we learn about it when it happens. After we filed, it took several months before they reacted, but now we know that the Philippine president is not welcome in China. We found out during the Nanning trade fair. The invitation issued to the Chinese foreign minister, he will not come. There's no way he'll come now, or any Chinese leader. So there's a virtual freeze in top-level political contacts. What's happening is really contacts at the ambassadorial level and the USEC levels and below. But higher than that, I think the only one who has been able to have any contact has been the trade secretary, who was able to go to Nanning. And this presents a question for APEC, which will be held in Beijing this year, around October or November.
Okay.
Who will represent the Philippines? Will the president be invited, or will it be at down the level of trade secretary? I'm hoping the Chinese don't make the mistake, which I think they did in Nanning, that they don't invite the Philippine president. But what I'm looking at is that if they invite Japanese Prime Minister Abe, then President Aquino is invited. If Abe is not invited, it doesn't mean President Aquino is invited necessarily, but then we'll have to see what happens. So politically, that's what happens. Top-level contacts are frozen.
Yeah.
No more aid. There's no aid program going on, no loans going on. Virtually very limited investment, if any. The only thing that's happening right now are trade and tourism, because it's mutually beneficial. Whether the Chinese will hit that too, we don't know yet. But those are two indicators we'll have to look at. on whether it will have an impact on our exports, you know, the fruits again, bananas again. But one thing for sure is that the Chinese will again throw the books at us. If there are germs in your bananas, if there are whatever small,
They make
you know,
things
the
more
rules.
difficult. Yeah.
You know, the other Chinese saying, I'm sorry to come out with this Chinese saying, if you don't like somebody, you give him a gift. A nice pair of shoes, but a size or a half size smaller, so that when the person walks, he has a hard time. In other words, make it difficult. And that is probably what we'll experience. They'll make it difficult for us, economically, politically.
Anyway,
While we go through this arbitration process. And so what I see is we'll go through a difficult period in bilateral relations. We are now reaching the lowest ebb since the diplomatic relations were set up in 75. And we may test new lows. Who knows
lower
what
than
this would
dirt
be?
bottom?
Hopefully not leading to a rupture, you know, that you were asking earlier.
Yeah.
I fear that if the Chinese were to launch, you know, I think the Chinese would be very careful though. They would not launch any attack to take over an island because the
Why
reaction
not? Because
in Philippine public opinion would be tremendous. That could pressure
just reaction,
the government
public reaction.
Why not?
Is U.S. presence going to scare them away? Is
That
what's
is
going to scare them
one,
away?
because if they were to do that, and if involved sinking a Philippine ship, or if involved deaths of Philippine soldiers, then we could actually test the Mutual Defense Treaty. Now, if you'll notice, the U.S. has been embarked on an interesting tactic.
Yes.
They have raised their voices in terms of objecting to the Chinese action, calling it provocative. It's interesting because it is meant to deter the Chinese from further action, so that the Chinese will not do it, which will then test the Americans on their commitment. So you shout now so that you will not have to
Respond later on.
And I think from the way the Chinese have been reacting, it's been fairly moderate in objecting to the Americans. They're saying, we hope the Americans will follow their word that they will stay neutral. It's not been as strong as the way they've been against us, against the filing. You know? They haven't summoned the American ambassador. They've summoned the Philippine ambassador. So it's calibrated. Why? Because the relations with the U.S. is very important for the Chinese. Okay, for us, the relations are also important for us, but they want to make sure that the other claimant countries in Southeast Asia will not follow our example. So we will stand alone while we go through this process, and they will test our resolve. But we have to see it through. But we have to pay a price, and they will make us pay a price.
Okay. Itong paying a price, no? Kanina nabanggit ko na nga. And well, you know, again, it's all speculation. But I wanted you to well, tell us if there is any basis to it. Diba? Yung power, communication lines, the cables, internet, yung mga ganun. And I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to, you know, get people alarmed or anything, no? Let's talk about it realistically. Ano ba talaga?
Realistically,
Are we
basically.
scaring ourselves silly?
Well, at the very least, the Chinese have been, since 2012, they've been able to wrest the seas from us. Since 2012. I will say that. We have lost our capability to, without any harassment or what, to fish in our own backyard or front yard, okay? You have the CMS operating there, okay? Expect that to increase in the near future. The thing is that as Filipinos, I presume we are thinking in terms of just like basketball, quick results, quick things. But the Chinese think generationally. They're very methodical. They're very deliberate and slow in reaction. Perhaps at this point in time they're like that because of the capabilities that they have with the U.S., vis-a-vis the U.S., Japan, and all these countries. But bear in mind that 1995, they had nothing. Now they have more, so they are able to operate in the doorstep. Imagine 10 years from now, when every year they're launching ship after ship. So I think we're going to be hit, if there's going to be a sure area where we're going to be hit, it's that maritime area. That's where I think it is.
But you don't think there will be any military attack, right?
No, because
no
they're using-
military assault.
they're using-
They wouldn't do that.
They're
That's
using
a-
CM or the Chinese Coast Guard against us because I think I mentioned it the other time that number one, it's white on white strategy and because for limiting tensions in the area, but at the same time also it's like a loophole in the RPUS MDT. Okay, you have the civilian vessels, even sometimes Chinese fishermen participate in these types of activities. Okay, so that's the loophole that's here. Because the thing is that we're thinking that we're going to protect ourselves with American a defense umbrella, but the Chinese they're not stagnant people. They're not just going to look at you and just, they will think of creative ways to get around that.
Yeah.
And the use of CMS FLEC is, or the CM or the Chinese Coast Guard is a creative way to go around what those things.
Well, can you address?
Yeah,
I hate to
think
be so
that,
makulit, no?
yeah,
But,
I think Jose is correct that any tightening, any reactions really would be more focused on the maritime area. So like tightening of the news or an increasing pace in the cabbage strategy. That I think is already a given. I mean, since 2008, they have been increasing their maritime patrols. They have been increasing their so-called fishery protection patrols, and there's no reason to doubt that they will continue to accelerate. With respect to some of the speculation, for example, that this National Grid Corporation will suddenly shut down, I think this is already
or,
a little bit too far. No? I
internet,
mean, we really should
yung
not.
internet.
Yeah, and
Internet.
the internet. I don't.
No.
The internet has too many
Okay,
pathways.
so in other words, we are scaring ourselves.
Yes,
silly.
I think we might be scaring ourselves and we might be getting too hysterical at some point. But what we really need is a very cold and impartial assessment really of these possibilities. There are possibilities, of course, but we really need to take a step back, put away the hysteria, put away the racism, and really objectively assess whether something like that, like shutting down the power grid, will be in their interest. No? I mean, even in their own interest. I mean, 40% owner of the National Grid Corporation, yes, but does that mean they're willing to forgo all the profits and all the money that's pouring in because of that ownership?
Yeah.
I don't think so. That would not be a rational decision. And the Chinese are nothing if not rational, and coldly calculating.
Especially with business.
And you were saying, we should parang step back from the hysteria and the racism. Because,
Especially the racism. Especially the racism.
Lately, there have been several small incidents. Like, for example, Chinese tourists, angered at Cebu Pacific pilots in Calibo. May mga ganon, ano?
Yes.
And then, may mga nagtatanong sa mga press con na at dami-dami mga Chinese nationals sa Divisoria, halimbawa, na hindi marunong man lang mag-Tagalog, Chinese ang inchikang salita nila. May mga ganon, ano?
And yet they've always been there. I mean, they've been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So we really need to step back from the hysteria and the racism. For me, that's what I've been observing in the past few years. Now, there really has been an increase in that kind of racist tensions. It's really what's underlying all of these disputes at this point.
And yet all of us have Chinese blood, I'm sure. No?
Yes.
Okay, last 4 minutes of the show. We're going to close, but at the same time, so I want to give you the time to give your final words. No, anything else you wanted to add? Let's start with Jose.
Well, like I said, I will re-emphasize again that our rhetoric has gone beyond our capabilities. Okay, probably because of the previous governments. Misprioritization or what have you, but at this point in time we have to be very careful already because history has shown that the Chinese are deliberate. They are not like us who think quick, who think instant result. They will move when it suits them, and they always prepare. Okay, like I said, the most important thing that we are all missing here is that we're fighting over islands. Okay. And little islets, okay? But that's it. But the seas, we forgot, okay? The people have forgotten that the seas are very important. And right now, it's Chinese fishermen who are lording it over in that area. Like I said, we lost control. So that's a thing that we're getting distracted by this little drama in Ayungin or this little thing in Panatag or in Scarborough Shoal. but the seas itself, we've lost it already. We've lost it, and we may lose it permanently. So we have to figure out a way how to.
So how do we get it back?
Well, that's well, offhand.
Go fishing.
Go fishing. Protect our fishermen.
Yeah.
Okay, government has to protect
Oh wait,
our
protect
fishermen.
fishermen meaning escort them?
Escort. You have to escort. You have to buy the food. But again, it's because of the situation that we're in right now that our rhetoric has exceeded our capabilities.
Okay.
Anything we can do.
When you say the rhetoric like that, like what lines should we avoid saying?
Well, like I
Example.
said, we're saying like the racism, the jingoism,
Yeah.
the
No, give a specific line
like
that we
example-
shouldn't say, but
actually, like I said, we're better than the Chinese. We're good like that.
Or
Like,
what
we
about,
outsmarted them in Ayungin. I tell that to you. That's
Okay.
it's a bit okay. It's nice to hear. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's like you're telling that you're actually baiting the Chinese to do something to you. Okay, you're telling that the Chinese captain was so the next time around, don't expect it to be a milk run. Okay, so. Perhaps we were thinking that it was a godsend that the ship got through, that the little boat got through. But again, how sure are we that the Chinese did not allow it to go through? Because remember that has those ships had smaller boats on them. They could have just also, if they really wanted to, they could have stopped that boat right then and there. Okay, so that's a thing that the Chinese can do next time.
Okay.
Is that they will not make this happen because we have rubbed our noses, and remember, it's this face thing again, okay? China is a country, it's an East Asian country, it has this face thing, okay? When you say that, if you poke it internationally, expect it to bite back or hit back, okay? Because it has the practical image, it has domestic public opinion, which will not accept that China is big. Remember, China has gone through several centuries of colonial, of imperial, what we call the Chinese watermelon stage. Okay, so remember, it has that chip on its shoulder, and you're dealing with a country with a chip on its shoulder.
all right. Jay, Batungbakan.
Well, for me, I think it would be good to again repeat now. We are now in the midst of an arbitration process, and I continue to advise caution. We are already committed to it, yes, but that doesn't mean that all of our chips should be in this one little basket of arbitration. We are seeing the realities on the ground changing dynamically. There are now higher risks of incidents and conflicts, and in the meantime, we're still banking on this arbitration. No? There will be limits really as to the usefulness of the arbitration. I don't fault the government for pursuing it, but I think that at this time, as we enter a critical period, we really need to rethink now the position of this arbitration in relation to the rest of the possible strategies, the possible options we have of dealing with this issue.
What Charles Jose earlier was saying that, an option would be go back to bilateral negotiations.
Yes, that's true. The problem there is that there is really a lack of trust between the two countries. And as Chito mentioned earlier, it really will take a great deal of statesmanship on both sides to sort of move away from this brink that we find ourselves in, where we're not talking with each other at high level. We have very tenuous relations with each other on a very
and one
low
of us
level.
has a chip on the shoulder.
One of us has a chip
Tayo
on the
naman, how do we
shoulder.
describe ourselves?
I
have
put it
lots
this
of
way.
rhetoric.
The Chinese are, if they're cold and calculating, we're always hot and improvising.
Emotional.
And
Masakit.
it's just not compatible. And
Yeah.
the possibility of an incident that neither side would want is very real. So we really need to start thinking again, whether we should do something else to sort of dial down the tensions and try to, at least live with each other cordially while this arbitration is
You
going
said
on.
we should start thinking again, or is it we should think?
Think more carefully, I
We should
guess,
think
or
more
maybe we
carefully.
should start
Are we thinking
opening
enough?
our
Are we thinking
minds.
enough?
Well, my fear really is that it seems like Philippine-China relations right now is defined by this arbitration only. And we don't hear any more about attempts to make better cultural relations, people
but
relations.
merong-
That seems to be,
Yeah. So we should heighten
gone.
that.
I think
the
we should.
cultural exchange.
Yes,
the,
yes. I think we really should
arts and-
start sincerely exploring those options again.
Yeah.
Before, the idea was that the two countries could isolate the territorial disputes from the rest of their relations. At this point, it seems like it's dominating.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God, we're so over time. Mr. Santa Romana.
you want something short, right?
Yes.
Basically, don't taunt the dragon. Otherwise, it will snort flames on you. So for us, keep cool. You know, use our brains. And more incidents like what happened last Saturday will happen again. We may not be able to repeat the same tactics, but we have to think of new ones because the Chinese will learn. And hopefully we can maintain control over the reefs and islands that we have right now so that we don't lose them one by one before the arbitration process ends.
All right. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Jose
Thank you.
Custodio, Jay
Thank you, Pia.
Batumbakal, and Chito Santa Romana. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. I'm Pia Hontiveros. This is News.Ph. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.